going to prove the true location of Bethlehem as quickly as possible. So Genesis 12:5, in the land of Canaan, in verse 6, and Abram passed through the land as far as the place of Shechem to the Terebinth the Morah, and the Canaanite was already in the land. And Yahweh appeared to Abram, and he said, to your seed I will give this land. And he built an altar there to Yahweh, who appeared to him. And every time they built the altar in this book, they end up, it's with the rock there, and it represents the Christ. And it's, Bethel, because that's house of God. And he moved from there to a mountain on the east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Hay on the east. And he built an altar there to Yahweh, and he called on the name of Yahweh. So when he traveled on, went south. And that Hay, that's that same thing we see in Joshua, where it's just spelled A-I. And it's the same exact word. So I circled that mountain that was on the east of Bethel, that Nazareth, and then I circled Bethlehem of Galilee, that was on the west of that mountain. And because see that house of God, it comes out of Bethlehem from the Micah prophecy, Bethlehem of Ephratah. And then it's, the Hay on the east, and it's that same city, that Ai from Joshua 8:9. So Joshua sent them out, and they went to lie in ambush. They stayed between Bethel and Ai at that Hay, that same place we just read. And they were on the western side of Ai. But Joshua camped the night long the people, and he rose in the morning. He went up to the elders of Israel in front of the people to Ai. And okay, so they pitched a camp on the north side of Ai with a valley between them in Ai. And he took about 5,000 men, and he set them to lie in ambush between Bethel and Ai on the west side of the city. So, and when they positioned the people, all the army on the north of the city, and the ambush on the west. So Joshua went that night in the middle of the valley. So I got circled Bethlehem of Galilee, that mountain, and that valley, because look, that Hay was still to the on the east of that mountain, where Bethel is on the west of that mountain, and Hay's still on the east. So it's that valley that I got circled on the far right. Exodus 6:2, and Elohim spoke to Moses, and he said, I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, but I was not known to him by my name, Yahweh. And look, and then they pitched altars every time they saw him. And now this is Isaac who called Jacob, because Isaac already received the blessing too. And he said in verse 3, and may El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, so that you might become a company of people, and that he may give you the blessing of Abraham to you. Because see, that blessing of Abraham, he did pass it to Isaac, and now he's hoping for it to pass to Jacob, and we know that it does. And then he has this dream here, and in this dream he sees Yahweh at the top of the ladder, and he was fearful of this place, and said, this is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of the heavens. And he set up a pillar, and he poured oil on top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel, and the name of that city had first been Luz. And so he's saying that rock, it represents the house of Elohim, because the rock I set up for a pillar will become the house of Elohim. And that's the same thing that Abraham did, because you see how it's that same blessing, to this seed I will give this land. And before that he's talking about making them a mighty people. And then it just says he built an altar to Yahweh, but it doesn't say anything about how he appeared to him, and it just says Yahweh said to him. But it doesn't say like him saying, I am Yahweh. He appeared to him as El Shaddai. Now in Genesis 13, Abraham, he comes back from Egypt, because, he traveled south from that place where he got the blessing. And so he's going back, and he gets back to Bethel, for the place where he had been, between Bethel and Hay. So where I've showed you in that image. And so right here, he's going back and forth with Lot about, the plains and stuff, like where they're at. There's not enough room for the livestock, and he has to move them. So you can pause this if you want to read this, but and Lot lifted his eyes and beheld that all the plain of Jordan was well watered everywhere before, and that was before Yahweh destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was like the garden of Yahweh, like the land of Egypt, as you come towards Zoar. And Lot chose for himself all the plain of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed eastwards, and that's that same place towards that A, because it was a well-watered area. But our clue here is it's not well-watered anymore because it was destroyed. As you can see, it's that same valley between that hay, and Bethel, and that mountain. And you can see where the south of it, and where I zoomed into, how it's dry there and not green like it used to be when Lot chose it, because it said that it was destroyed by Yah. And so another clue we can go to, if we go back to chapter 12, so it was the place of Shechem to the terebinth of Merel, and the Canaanites were already in the land, at 12:6. I go to Deuteronomy 11. So come to pass when Yahweh Elohim brought you into the land where you are to possess it. Okay. The exaltation on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal, verse 30, Deuteronomy 11. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan, that valley we just looked at? There's the Jordan River flows down there from the Sea of Galilee on the north, all the way down to like the Dead Sea. And by the road where the sun goes down, the sun sets on the west, in the land of the Canaanites, who live in the plain, that's that flat land, facing Gilgal, near the terebinth trees of Merle. So we know there's a plain there, because look, near the terebinth tree of Merle, and then Shechem's over there too, the Canaanites in the land. Judges 18:2. And when they came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, they stayed there. So that house of Micah, that Micah is the prophet Micah. And we see from that images, we've seen the plains there and the hills there. You can see that's a hill country of Ephraim, Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem of Ephrathah, being least among the thousands of Judah, out of you will come for me one to become ruler in Israel. And now Genesis 35:16, they traveled from Bethel. And that Bethel really would probably be just south of that Bethlehem. And because then you see how he went to the mountain to the east. And I know I've been saying Bethlehem, but it's to make this point. And there was still a short way to travel to Ephraim. And Rachel conceived and had hard labor. And she was about to die when she gave birth to Benjamin. And her firstborn son is Joseph. Joseph had Ephraim and Manasseh. Verse 19, and Rachel died and was buried on the road to Ephraim, which is Bethlehem. And that's, and if you read down in verse 22, Reuben went and laid with Bilhah, his father's concubine. So yeah, he defiled his father's bed. And that was beyond the Tower of Eder, the Migdal Eder. So Abraham was probably somewhere around where I circled when he moved from there to a mountain. So it sounds like, he wasn't really on any kind of incline before, where Bethlehem kind of is on an incline a little. And it's more flat where I circled. But you see, from traveling from Bethel to Ephraim, it's just a short way to travel there. And that Ephraim is Bethlehem, Genesis 35:19. And like it says in Deuteronomy 11:30, who live in the plain facing Gilgal, near the terebinth trees of Merel, where Abraham was. And there's no plains in that Bethlehem of Judah. It's just a lie. It's mountainous there. Goats hang out in the mountains. And if you go to Joshua 15, you're going to pause it if you want to read it all, but this ends up showing the inheritance of Judah. And you will not see one Bethlehem in there. Verse 20, this is the inheritance of the tribes of the sons of Judah in keeping with their families. Now read through it and pause it. Bethlehem isn't listed. Ruth 1:1, and a certain man from Bethlehem, Judah. No, there's no Judah. That's a lie inserted there. They didn't have nothing. And look, because it says, it came to pass in the days when judges judged. And there's a famine in the land. Probably a famine of hearing the word. But anyways, Micah lived in the time of judges, and he wrote Bethlehem Ephratah. And we know that Bethlehem there, in the road to Ephraim, and how it's in the hill country of Bethlehem, of Ephraim, that they didn't have no inheritance. Judah didn't with Bethlehem, because it says in the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. This is that kinsman redeemer story, and his two sons were Milan, Chilon, Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. Nope, in Judah, that part that's inserted, it's Bethlehem. Ephrathites of Bethlehem. 1 Samuel 1, and a certain man of Ramathaim Ziphim of the hill country of Ephraim. His name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Zoph, an Ephrathite. He had 2 wives. And that certain man, it's speaking of Samuel, the Elkanah and them, that's from his genealogy. He's an Ephrathite. Now, 1 Samuel 16:1, Samuel, how long will you grieve Saul, seeing that I rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil, go, and I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have seen myself a king among his sons. Okay, and then you get to verse 4, and Samuel did what Yahweh had spoken, and he went to Bethlehem, and he ends up anointing David. And Samuel took a horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of Yahweh came in power to David from that day forward. And his dad was Jesse the Bethlehemite. Which, look, 17:12, now David was the son of that Ephrathite from Bethlehem. They put Judah, that's a lie. Judah didn't have Bethlehem in their inheritance, whose name was Jesse. The Ephrathite is the same thing as a Bethlehemite, because Ephraim is Bethlehem, and Ephrathite, Bethlehemite. Ephrathite, you're from Bethlehem. Remember, Genesis 35:16, they traveled from Bethel, and there was a short way to Ephraim. And then verse 19, Rachel died there and was buried the road to Ephraim, which is Bethlehem. Ephrathite and Ephraim is the same thing. If you're an Ephrathite, you're from Ephraim, and Ephraim is Bethlehem. 1 Chronicles 7, you're going to want to pause it if you want to see the context, but speaking of the sons of Manasseh, and then you get to verse 20, it's speaking of the sons of Ephraim through verse 29, so it's like Ephraim and Manasseh, they're both of the families of Joseph from his line. So, and his son Nun, his son, that's Yehoshua, that's Joshua, you look it up. And their possessions and habitations were Bethel and its towns. So all those ones that were near it, and Bethlehem is near it. And eastwards of Nuran and westwards of Gezer with the villages, and Shechem, that's that same Shechem we read in Genesis 12. And its villages, and Asha and its villages, and the borders of the sons of Manasseh, Ben-Shin and its villages, and Tenach and its villages, Megiddo and its towns, Dor and its villages. In these lived the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. So in Bethel and Bethlehem, it's where the sons of Joseph lived. David is the son of Joseph, David Ephraim. 1 Chronicles 5, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, he was the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph is the son of Israel. And the genealogy is not reckoned by the birthright. It's because they lie in the genealogy. They know about the lying pen of the scribes. From Jeremiah 8:8, a conspiracy, and then Jeremiah 11:9, a conspiracy is found in Judah. Jeremiah 17:1, the sin of Judah with the iron pen. You know, iron doesn't mix with clay. For Judah was the strongest among his brothers, and from him came the chief ruler, but the birthright was Joseph's. See, the genealogy is not reckoned by the birthright in these chronicles, because they lie. Judah, the lying pen of the scribes, turned the truth of the Messiah from Joseph into the lion tribe of Judah. Birthright says Joseph, Genesis 48, and Jacob said to Joseph, El Shaddai, who appeared to me. Remember, he appeared to Abraham and Isaac and now Jacob. He gave him that, make yourself fruitful and multiply you, and I will make you a company of people, that promise. And look, that's Christians. Because look what it says when he blesses Ephraim and Manasseh, and he puts his hand over their head, and he put his right hand over Ephraim instead of Manasseh. And Joseph was like, oh, that's the wrong one, because Ephraim or Manasseh was the literal firstborn, but the birthright's Ephraim's. He said, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your right hand on him. And his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know he will become a people. So Manasseh will become Christians, and he will be eminent, but truly his younger brother will be more eminent than him. His seed will become, and it's a word for fullness, but the fullness of the nations, which is those nations that, you know, they're multiplied into many nations. If you read all the verses on the blessings in the different chapters. But when he says now, and so I'll give this land to your seed for you and enduring possession, verse 5 now. And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you, they are mine. He's given them that birthright. Like Reuben and Simeon, they will be mine. So, and your children whom you father after them will be yours. They, speaking of Ephraim and Manasseh, shall be called after the name of their brothers and their inheritance. And you know, they'll be a people, Christians. So Ephraim and Manasseh called in that name Christians. Ephraim and Manasseh will be Christ. And look what the firstborn, what Reuben would have got, but he defiled his bed, his father's bed in Genesis 1, or 49:3. Reuben, my firstborn, my might in the beginning of my strength, the highest in dignity and highest in power, but flowing away like water, you will not excel, because you went up and to the bed of your father and defiled it. So he ends up giving it to Joseph, because look, 22 through 26, all the blessings on Joseph, who's set apart from his brothers. From the hands of Hahavir Jacob, from the Raha, from the shepherd, the stone of Israel, even stone. So I circled true Bethlehem to the north, where the plains were. And now we know David is the line of Joseph. Israel loved Joseph more than his sons because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long garment. It was Joseph, being 17 years old, who was feeding the flock of his brothers. Amen. David Ephraim.